begin with the pyrotechnics permit for the Village of Marvin, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Cotto to make some comments.
Thank you, Chairman. This issue is before you as Firethorn is attempting to get a fireworks permit for the July 4th, and they have applied through the Village of Marvin, and Marvin has not met, so their application has not been dealt with. We do have an arrangement with all of our municipalities that if firework displays are in fact going to be held within their municipalities, the request first goes to them before it comes to the county. Since Marvin has not met, and it is our understanding that they have actually closed operations until July 10th at this point, because they have not adopted a budget, we find ourselves in a position of a request has come to us to temporarily withdraw Marvin's ability to issue that permit, and actually the county take the necessary action in order for that permit, if that's the board's desire, to be granted. In your agenda item, you have two items. It would also include adoption of a resolution that is entitled, "A Resolution Temporarily Withdrawing the Procedure for Permitting the Public Exhibition of Pyrotechnics as it applies to permit approval required by the Village of Marvin." And I believe Ms. West sent this to you by email, and also there is a copy of the resolution at each of your seats. And I believe, yes, our fire marshal is here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. It's my understanding that Firethorn has had this event on a regular basis in the years past?
Yes, sir. And the permit was submitted to us for review on May the 10th of this year, and we approved it pending the Village of Marvin's communication to us that they approved it as well on May the 14th.
Well, I will move that we withdraw authority from the Village of Marvin to issue permits for pyrotechnics to be exhibited, used, or discharged within Marvin's corporate limits, July 2 through July 9, 2018. And also to grant permission for the Union County Fire Marshal's Office to issue the required operational permit for fireworks display as defined by the North Carolina Fire Code on July the 4th at Firethorn Country Club. You need to handle those separately.
Those actions are both encompassed in the resolution, so the board can just
Adopt the resolution. Okay, fine. Motion to adopt the resolution. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Sufficient. Item number 2 is update on the Yadkin River Water Supply Project.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Today we're going to provide an update on the Yadkin Water Project. Some of this will be repetitive to some of you, however, we believe it is important to provide historical information on the project as to how we got to where we are today, to ensure that all board members have the same information. As we all are aware that we do have a new board member that has not had the pleasure of participating in all of the discussions as it relates to this particular project. This afternoon you will hear from Kevin Motzidler with the engineering firm of HDR. Kevin has worked on this project since its inception. Barry Gullett, our interim public works director, as well as our outside counsel, will also provide information as needed today. And with that, Kevin, if you would like to come forward and
Good afternoon. The task I have is to summarize about a decade's worth of work in thousands of hours in 15 minutes. The good news for y'all is I'm going to do it in 15 minutes. I'm going to point a lot of things through this. So if you, I assume it's 1842 when the county boundaries were. When the county boundaries here in Union were formed, this probably wasn't a big consideration, but the challenge with where Union County sits in the region is it doesn't sit near major water basin sources, right? The Catawba River to the west, which you see here, little bit about, North Carolina law and things that govern, the movement of water. So if you look at this, slide, you'll see the county, you'll see a gold line that represents the Catawba River Basin boundary line. And so much of the county sits, or a little bit of the county sits in the Catawba River Basin service area, but geographically, 2/3 of the county, sits in the Yadkin River Basin service area. That's the area east or to the right of the gold line. And so, that river basin boundary is very significant because movement of water across it from the Catawba to the Yadkin, is governed by what's called interbasin transfer. Now, within the overall Yadkin River Basin, this gets a little bit complicated. The state of North Carolina has decided there are subbasins, which are also considered interbasin transfers. So if you'll look with me to Lake Tillery in the upper right of the slide, if you pull water out of Lake Tillery and you move it over that dotted line, that is also considered an interbasin transfer, even though it's still within the bigger Yadkin River Basin. So if you pull water out of, say, Lake Tillery and you move it into Stanley or Union County and into what we call the Rocky River IBT Basin, that too is an interbasin transfer. So what it really means is that if you're gonna serve water into that 2/3 of the county, you're very likely gonna have an interbasin transfer somewhere. So right now, the county depends, heavily on what's called a grandfathered IBT limit from the Catawba River. So in this, slide, you'll see the ridge line, which is in the heavy gold line, between the Catawba and Yadkin River Basin service area. And you'll see the red arrows coming from the west of the Catawba River Water Supply Project, which feeds Catawba River water into the county's distribution system into the Catawba River Basin service area, which goes over, as you'll see, the boundary line. So to serve water into the gold area, I'm calling it gold, by the way, I hope it's gold. To go over that, you can only take 5 million gallons per day because of the cap on it. So any future growth has to be supplied from a new interbasin transfer. There is a portion of the county's water that comes from Anson County to the east, that's the line coming in from the right, to supply a small, distribution, network on what exists on that side of the county now.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a
Yes,
question?
sure. Question, Kevin?
Yes.
How much do we take, within, let's say, or how much are we taking right now? Because we're taking more than 5 million gallons a day, but we're putting back some, right?
Yes, right now, that's a great question, dives into a lot of detail. So right now, the system, is kind of set up to move more than 5 across that line on peak days and then stay within the grandfathered IBT by putting some back. If you move water across any of these boundaries and you put it all back, it's not considered interbasin transfer. So right now, to stay there, yes, you move more over and take some back.
How much are we moving over?
My best answer to that is on peak days, it's getting near the 5 MGD. I'm sure that Barry can answer that. Well, Barry's pretty new. Barry could probably answer that better than I can.
I think your answer is correct.
Yeah, when it's peak days like this time of year, it's getting very close to the 5.
Okay, so it's not 7?
Well, you're moving more than, I'm sorry, you're asking what's we're moving over. Yes, you're moving over around 7, I think, and then moving back a couple to stay within the 5.
Right, you're putting, through the sewer plant, you're putting the 2 million gallons
Yeah,
through.
and pumping it back over there.
We're not going over 7, right?
I can't answer that specifically.
I don't know the exact amount.
Yeah, I don't know the exact amount.
So, but not over 7, right? Because we can put back 2, we'd be violating our interbasin transfer.
Right, whatever you're putting over, you're bringing back enough to stay below the 5, yes. That's something the state asks you to monitor, as a result of the grandfather IBT now, so that's pretty closely monitored.
Right, can we get that number this week sometime?
Any other questions on this? Okay. So the need, for a new water supply to serve the vast part of the county that's in the Yadkin River Basin service area has been looked at since a study was began in 2003, so almost 50, this will be the 15th year. I'm just gonna run through these real quickly. There was a Rocky River Water Supply Feasibility Study done in 2004, Water Supply Master Plan in 2005, an Eastern Water Supply Preliminary Engineering Report in 2008. And these were done by different consultants, they weren't all done by HDR. done in 2011, and it fed into also a comprehensive water and sewer master plan that was done in 2011. So this is kind of the backdrop to the current project that we're going to talk about today, which is the Yadkin River Water Supply Project, what we're doing. And so we took a look at what is the need in the county's Yadkin River Basin service area. And so in this graph, you'll see that we project from, say, going back to 2010 out to 2050. And if you look at this, the demand that's necessary in the county's Yadkin River Basin service area is expected to reach about 23.3 million gallons per day by the year 2050. That's the amount that is needed to be met by a new water supply source. So real quickly on this graph, what you see, the black line going up across is the overall water demand. The green is that amount that's actually currently being brought in from the Catawba River Water Supply Project across that boundary, will continue to be over time. And then the red is the amount you're getting from Anson, and the blue is what is necessary from our proposed project that again is the topic of today's conversation. So if you look, Commissioner's question earlier is how much are we taking across, and I think the graph here, some of these out in the current years are projections because they were done a couple years ago. But we're taking across an amount and then bringing some back. So the point of this is there's a lot of expectation for growing demand, and so we needed to look for how are we going to replace the gap between what we could supply and what was needed, and that was about 23.3 million gallons on a maximum month basis.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sure, go ahead.
How many gallons of water per day per home? Like, what do we allocate for that? Like, is it, I've heard the number 180 gallons per day per house.
The number you may have heard that went into these projections was 120 gallons per capita day. That's per person per day in your system. 120 is the number that we utilize to create this demand.
Per person.
Per person. That includes, however, projections for commercial, industrial, all built into the 120. So it's not, that's not just a residential component.
What's the number we use for residential? So if we're told that we have plenty of capacity, what number are you using to calculate that capacity?
Well, the 120 is broken down into, and I have the numbers, I don't have them on the slide, and so you can hold me to these, but 75 or 80 per person, and then there's an accounting for commercial, industrial, some process loss.
Would 180 be reasonable?
What's that?
Would 180 be reasonable?
180 in this region at this time, as you compare apples to apples, would be considered very high.
High usage.
Very high.
Okay. Per home.
Per person within your distribution system. So the way the math works is we look at overall demand for all uses, but then we break it down by person per day.
Mm-hmm.
That accounts for commercial as well. So for instance, if you had an enormous brewery come in, that was a heavy usage, then using the 120 would go up, right? Because we're still pulling that number back into a per capita usage. And again, with a lower industrial water customer base, that number will come down. We actually have really good metrics for that per capita number for utilities all around this area, both on the Catawba Basin and the Yadkin Basin. 120, by the way, was a number that's been, we've had to defend a lot with the state as we work with our IBT. Any other questions on this? Okay. So there were some creative solutions that we needed to make this project work. We did the project partner assessment to find out were others interested in being engaged. That again, as I mentioned, fed into the master plan. One of the challenges to secure water, whether you're getting it from the Catawba or the Yadkin, is you've got to acquire some property rights in a different county. And North Carolina has some restriction on doing that. So the Union County really needed a partner in order to make that happen. And also, same thing's true on accessing water from one of the sources. You've got to have property along the water. So in that time period, 2011, 2012, staff here in the county went and looked for partners, essentially. So I've got them kind of numbered here. Albemarle, conversation with Stanley County, and then Stanley County actually brought up the concept of one of their municipalities, the Town of Norwood, who owned and operated a water treatment plant. So, staff here went to talk to the Town of Norwood. So what we found out in Norwood is that Norwood does indeed own a 2 MGD water treatment plant on Lake Tillery. So if you look at this map, you'll see again how that Union County gets water now from the Top River Water Supply Project in the Anson County system. And then when you look, and maybe a lot of thought hadn't been put into this, but Lake Tillery actually geographically sits closer to the county than any other major reservoir for sure. And so this conversation with Norwood led to the opportunity and the interest in being a regional partner for water supply. And so those conversations continue. It made a lot of sense when you look at it geographically also. So for the next 18 months or so, there were a lot of negotiations with a lot of interest from a lot of different attorneys. There was some engineering consulting support on both sides. We were very open about the process, both in sharing that with this board and the Town of Norwood's board as we progressed through. There were some press releases throughout the process. And at the end of that 18 months, we completed an interlocal intake and transmission agreement. Pretty wordy, but that's what we call it. Which was really founded on benefits for both Norwood and Union County. So in brief, what Norwood gets out of this agreement that was signed in 2013, right?
Yes.
Is they get a new and improved raw water intake. They have a small intake, small town, they need a lot of repair and rehab both there and in their treatment plant. And so Union County will build and expand a new intake for them and for Union County's purposes. Norwood gets protection against future regulatory issues which might cause some sort of capital investment into the intake. And maybe most importantly, they get an income stream for helping Union County acquire property throughout Stanley County as well as having that access right on the waterway. And so what Union County gets out of it is long-term reliable water supply from the Yadkin River Basin service area, and frankly a solution to a problem that's been out there for a long, long time, certainly for the last 15 years. And a collaborative partner for design and construction and easement acquisition. So that was kind of like step, I don't know what you call that step, you might want to call it step 1 of this project, but step 2 was working to secure an interbasin transfer certificate from the state of North Carolina, which is issued by the North Carolina Environmental Management Commission. Arguably, it's the most difficult regulatory approval to go and seek at the state. And so it takes a lot of fortitude. So we went into this understanding it was going to take about 4 years. We had an option of doing an environmental assessment, but we knew that the project was going to be important enough for a lot of people in the region that we did an environmental impact statement, lots of water modeling, and then work for those 4 years to secure an interbasin transfer certificate, and that was issued last May of 2017. And so right now we're in the process of wrapping up the second major permit effort, which is what we call lake use permit, which is issued by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission through Duke Energy's operation of the reservoir on Lake Tillery. So we've got the biggie, so to speak, and we're working on the second one. And we're also in parallel working on the design effort to bring the project into full fruition and construction and startup by the year 2022. That was a timeline we set out in 2013, and we're doing pretty well.
Kevin, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Remind me, wasn't there some assistance or input, potentially financial input from Duke with regard to that modeling process?
Yes.
Such that it was so extensive that they wanted the information, so they were willing to help out? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, so Duke operated prior to their merger with Progress. No, that's not right. So when Duke merged with Progress, I don't remember what year, but it overlapped some of this time period. And so Duke handled modeling and the way they operated the reservoir is different than Progress. And so what Duke wanted after that acquisition was a very robust water model to help manage their hydropower assets on the Yadkin River. So as we began a really extensive water modeling effort to support this project, Duke said, okay, at the end of the day, we too want to have access to that. So they helped fund a portion of the water modeling effort that was completed as part of the IBT.
Thank you.
had a preferred alternative, which was the Lake Tillery withdrawal and a new county water treatment plant. So this is kind of a, I'll call it a cartoon version of the project, but it does a good job of illustrating the four key elements. One is this project would include a new raw water intake on Lake Tillery that's combined with what Norwood needs. So new intake on Lake Tillery, approximately 30 miles of raw water pipeline, a new water treatment plant in northeastern Union County, and then about 10 miles of finish line to connect to the right point in your distribution system. So it's kind of four elements. And I should point out here, the team, as it's advanced the project, have grouped these four elements in what you will see as two projects. One is the raw water intake and raw water supply pipeline, and the other is the water plant finished water pipeline. So I'll talk about it in a minute, but we've kind of packaged this project as two projects to be built simultaneously. So we got the IBT certificate in 2017, and I think most of the board is aware there's been some legal challenges out there. And so in 2017, we tried to do some other homework to set us up and not lose time, because what we projected several years ago was a real challenge meeting water demand in the service area by the year 2021. And so we wanted to keep things moving. So here are some of the things we've done since May of last year and leading us up to where we are. We've been working hand in hand with your staff in a program management effort to help deliver the projects. We've worked to get far down the line on securing the water plant site. We've done some additional public outreach, and that includes in Norwood and Stanley County. And we have developed and put out RFQs for progressive design build approach to these two projects. We've put out RFQs, we've selected the firms, and we're now negotiating what you will see as two contracts to get this project done. So here's the target project schedule. This is what I'm gonna finish with. And this is like an overall master schedule that we've been kind of updating since the middle of last year. I'm only gonna try to point out and let you focus on the things that are relevant in 7 and 8 of 2018, or July and August. So some of the things we're doing now, we're completing that lake use permit application that we'll submit to FERC through Duke. We're working through some of the litigation issues, the administrative hearing that's scheduled for September. And we did issue RFQs in the earlier part of the year, as I mentioned, and we're negotiating with two teams to bring forward contracts in August for you to look at. And if all of that continues to proceed on this schedule, as you see toward the end, we can deliver water by 2022. So we need to stay on that, because as it relates to water demand, that's a real pinch time. So, and that's really it for my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take those.
Thank you, Kevin.
At this time, Commissioner, we would recommend we go into closed session for the balance
Okay,
of the
sure.
discussion.
Can we ask a few questions before we go into closed session?
Sure.
Okay. And I don't know who to direct these to, but, you know, current demand is current demand, and we can meet current demand right now. And one of the concerns I have is, especially with the notices that we've been sending out over the past week about not watering lawns and asking people to take a pledge not to water their lawns. What is the problem with that? Because it says we're at our limit. It says that our plants are stretched to their limit. Who needs to answer that?
Barry?
The last thing that any utility wants to do is leave the customers high and dry. And so a couple weeks ago, we were seeing, water demand escalate day over day. And so I recommended to the manager that we, request our customers' assistance. You have to remember that the only people who control how much water is used in the county are the customers. It's when they turn on their spigot or the irrigation system or whatever they're using the water for. They really drive how much water is used. And so we were going into a weekend with a hot, dry forecast, and we believed that we needed to ask
continue, sure.
Are we still issuing permits for new customers to come onto the system?
Yes, we are.
How many did we issue last week?
I don't have the number for that specific.
Is this,
Commissioner, can I just ask you to clarify what you mean by permits?
are we still taking new customers? Are we still taking new customers for subdivisions?
We're still taking requests from existing residents as well as new development.
Commissioner, maybe I can be helpful because I just want to make sure if we're not answering your question appropriately, but are you talking about the contracts that we sign for as new development comes in? Is that what you're speaking of?
Yeah, and I guess I'm concerned if, you know, no matter what happens, with the Norwood project, you know, anything could happen. Do we have enough to serve the people that we make commitments to?
The county is working a plan. The county has a good plan, and I believe as long as we continue along that plan, we'll be able to serve the applications that we're taking. Yes, sir.
But we don't have enough water for people to water their lawns, and we're not in a drought.
Well, the issue is the peak demands, the high demands that we get when the weather's dry, and a lot of people turn on sprinkler. You're right, we're not in a drought. And so the issue is not the amount of water that's in the river, it's the amount of water that we can get to our customers. And so they were pushing that pretty hard, and if they exceed that amount, the consequences are pretty dire. And so it's not worth the risk of doing that when we can ask our customers to voluntarily reduce their water usage a little bit to give us a little bit of a margin of safety. One of the things that we always have to be prepared for is there could be a large water main break, there could be a big fire, there could be some unexpected water usage. And if we're that close to the edge and one of those things happen, then we're gonna have people who go out of water. And that creates consequences that no one wants to experience.
And I agree. You know, one question I did have about the water pipes bursting. Is it that the tanks collapse because there's such a drain on it at one time, or how does the pipe burst when you're taking more water out of it?
Yeah, so what happens when the demand is high is that you have to force the water through the pipes. You've got to get it all the way, you know, through that long distances through a relatively small diameter pipe. And so you have to increase the pressure that you're pumping at, and so it puts more stress on the pipe. And so that additional stress during those high demand times will show up any weakness. If there's already a small leak, it might turn into a big leak. If there was something that was right on the verge of breaking, it's going to probably let go at that time.
So the more water you're pushing through the pipe, the more demand, that the pressure of pushing it through the pipe could cause it to burst.
That's right. It's the higher pressure that results in the stress on the pipe, forcing the water through the pipe during those times.
Right. So if we had more customers on that pipe, that doesn't create the stress.
Well, if you're pushing more water through there, it will. So it depends on whether the customers are using more water or not.
Okay. So if we have a 100-home subdivision opens up next week and we push all that water through, that could cause a pipe to burst?
Well, again, it's very location specific, and so if the rest of the system is using a normal amount of water, an average amount of water, then probably it won't cause a problem. If all of the existing customers and new customers have their sprinkler systems going, and we're really stressed, we're pushing water through there, it raises the probability or the possibility that there could be a main break. It doesn't mean there will be, but it increases the likelihood that it would happen.
Any further questions? I would move that the board go into closed session to consult with an attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to consider and give instructions concerning the handling of the following judicial actions: Stanley County versus Union County and Town of Norwood, Stanley County petitioner versus North Carolina Environmental Management Commission et al. Respondents. Montgomery County et al. Versus North Carolina Environmental Management Commission et al. Respondents. And Yadkin Riverkeeper Petitioner versus North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality et al. Respondents. All in favor say aye. Aye.